Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Santa Cruz County. I'm Russ Menk, the senior minister serving this amazing congregation filled with folks who are trying to make a difference in the world while keeping their lives in balance. We had an in-person workshop yesterday titled Sabbatical Re-Entry Workshop, and that was facilitated by our Pacific Western Region primary contact, the Reverend Dr. Melissa James. Melissa spent, 6-ish hours with us helping decide what you and I learned during the 5-month sabbatical. And as we and basically, what can we do coming out of the pandemic into this new reality? And what can we do that's sustainable and joyful for everyone? We spend a productive day wrestling with questions like, who are we? What are we doing? What drives us as a community? What's important to us? Now, there's going to be a lot more shared with you all as to this realignment, reprioritization, reentry, as it reveals itself to us. Because it's not done. We're just exploring what can we do. It is an exciting time, and it's a little bit scary to be coming out of the pandemic, but this is the optimum time to reevaluate how we spend our life energy. This is a particularly exciting time for changes and rejoicing. Changes like Ketanji Brown Jackson, as confirmed as the first black female Supreme Court justice. That means that when she starts her term, white men will no longer be the majority on the Supreme Court. That's a first. A time for rejoicing, like this is Palm Sunday, initiating Holy Week for Christians all over the world. A time of hope and rejoicing. And a time for rejoicing because the United States Senate unanimously passed 2 bills this week. One to strip Moscow of its preferential trade status, and the other to ban the import of Russian energy into the U.S. Those 2 bills unanimously passed the Senate and had a huge majority in the House. I'm just joyful that our government can still do things in a bipartisan manner. For me, it's easier to be in a good mood during springtime. The changes in the plants, the birds, the waves, the hours of daylight, and the temperatures all contribute to providing me my days with ample opportunities for joy. If I pay attention, and if I limit my input to world events. When I limit my input to the news to less than an hour a day, I am not denying nor avoiding reality. I just get overwhelmed when I get too much input. And not because I don't understand or can't process the news. I get overwhelmed because I spend way too much time wondering what is true, what is factual, and what are merely the beliefs or opinions of the commentator. When I hear something, I have to research it on my own to verify if there are any facts. It's a confusing world, and we no longer have a single source of news that we all trust and believe. Walter Cronkite is gone. When he died in 2009, 28 years after his last broadcast, a poll of the United States showed that 78% of Americans have a favorable view of Walter Cronkite, and 52% says their opinion of him is very favorable. There is no Walter Cronkite today. We are in an era where trust in each other is declining, and trust in politicians and news sources is plummeting. How are we supposed to know what's true or factual or real? Should we listen to the loudest voice? To the most frequently repeated stories? The most persuasive speaker? Or even more dangerously, do we cling to views that closely align with our own? If you think you can figure out these answers alone, you are welcome here. We can work on them together. If you struggle to distinguish facts from truth, from wisdom, from falsehoods, you are not alone, and you are welcome here. If you are struggling and so overwhelmed with grief and sorrows that you don't have time for opinions, you are welcome here. If you just need a respite from the crazy, overwhelming world out there and need a safe place to be for an hour or so, you are welcome here. All of you are welcome here because our most precious resource is each other. It ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Mark Twain. Now, doesn't that sound like Mark Twain? But did Mark Twain really say it? The website quoteinvestigator.com, researched this and found that the most likely original source was an 1874 booklet titled Josh Billings' Encyclopedia and Proverbial Philosophy of Wit and Humor. There's no evidence that Mark Twain ever said that or wrote those words. But the quote started being attributed to Mark Twain about 1899 and has been repeated so often that Twain gets the credit. So if you repeat something for 100 years, does it become true? Or more importantly, why does the origin of this or any other quote even matter? Do you see what just happened? At first, you were humored by a witty quote and were content to know that a brilliant, witty person said it. It's a great saying. But now I've thrown doubt and cast suspicion on who originally said it. And now you're confused as to whether Twain or Josh Billings originally said it. And now you can't even remember the quote. How do we know what we know? What is knowledge? And what's the difference between facts, beliefs, and knowledge? Well, we're not the first to wrestle with this conundrum. Epistemology is one of the four main branches of philosophy. And epistemology is the philosophy of the theory of knowledge, especially with regards to its methods, validity, and scope. Epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes justified beliefs from opinions. Distinguishing justified belief from opinion. Do you see how that's an assignment only for you? At this time, I'd like to invite you into some self-reflection. What is one of your justified beliefs? Something that you are certain is true. Maybe you believe that the southern border wall is a dismal failure. Or maybe you believe that children's screen time should be limited. Or maybe you believe that organic bananas are better for you. But wait a minute. Are those opinions? Or are they justified beliefs? Do you justify beliefs from the news you read, from conversations with friends, or from personal experience? Investigating our justified beliefs and how they differ from our opinions is so easily said, but proves to be a lifelong effort with many revisions along the way. last week I said that I turn to history when I can't understand the things that are happening in the world. And history sometimes provides me with perspectives about what is happening now. But is the history that I read true? Calvin and Hobbes is a comic strip that you've heard Rev Ryan talk about and I've mentioned more than once. In one panel, Calvin turns to Hobbes and says, "History is the fiction we invent to persuade ourselves that events are knowable and that life has order and direction." History is the fiction we invent, which is another way of saying that famous cliche, history is written by the winners. That quote is often mistakenly attributed to Winston Churchill, but we're not going to go there. This suspicion of history is at the core of the debate over critical race theory. It's about a different way of viewing history, different from the way history has been taught in the mainstream U.S. educational system for generations. And if you have a justified belief that the history you learned is true, you can understand why it's upsetting when someone says there's a different view. Because when two differing justified beliefs held by powerful people clash, like the sides in critical race theory, like abortion, like states' rights and constitutional originalist, like mask mandates, that's like fighting elephants. Now, let me explain that last simile. I served as a chaplain in a hospital in Texas, and my supervisor was from Nigeria. And she shared the African proverb, "When elephants fight, the grass gets trampled." So when huge, powerful entities, people, parties, armies fight, the grass gets trampled. When elephants fight, she told me, usually no elephant really gets hurt, but the grass is destroyed. It's an eternal effort to continuously seek the truth with facts. And I'm not sure you can grow spiritually with facts. But I do believe there's a great spiritual practice to think about how you think. It's worth repeating. Do you ever think about how you think? Embedded in that question is, how do you know anything? What makes you believe in something, in anything? How do you distinguish a fact from a falsehood? The answer is not the internet, because on my tablet, I can find a counterpoint to every fact that you hold as true. The answer to how you think is not stating your opinions, for opinions are personally held and not always communally agreed upon. Also, the answer's not in your heart or in your gut, because answers from the heart and gut are not always grounded in rationality nor facts. The question, do you think about how you think, can only be answered with a lot of personal, objective observations of your thought processes. Here's some easy exercises for you. When you see a panhandler standing on the median in traffic in front of a sign that says no loitering, what do you think? Why are you thinking those thoughts? What judgments are embedded in those thoughts? Where did those judgments come from? Here's another example. You read a news article that says the focus of space flight is shifting from scientific research to the tourism market, with tickets costing $500,000 or each for a short space ride. What do you think? What is in your personal history that affects how you are thinking about space flights for tourists, rich tourists? What judgments do you have in your thinking, and where do they come from? I'll be honest with you. When I ask myself these types of questions, I conclude that I am not an objective thinker. I have many, many opinions that have no basis in fact or even personal experience. I'm a mixed up bag of biases, stereotypes, and reactive judgments. But I'm working on it because I don't want to stay stuck in the way I'm thinking. I don't want to be destined to acting out of my beliefs that may or may not be true. Parker Palmer says this about spiritual growth and about thinking, how you think. He says, staying with what you know and only doing what you're good at results in an unlived life. I'll close with a great teaching from Shunryu Suzuki's book, Zen Mind, Beginner Mind. What is a beginner's mind? It's dropping our expectations and preconceived ideas about something and seeing things with an open mind, fresh eyes, just like a beginner. When you've ever learned something new, maybe you can remember what that was like. You probably were confused because you didn't really understand how you were going to use what you were learning. But you're also looking at everything as if it was brand new. Curiosity, wonder, and over time it comes together and makes more sense. But only because you were open to something new. That's beginner's mind. Children are born with beginner's mind, but as we age, we are forced to abandon it for facts, beliefs, certainty, knowledge, binary analysis, judgments. To grow spiritually, you must discover that some of your beliefs are flawed, may have suited you in the past, but may not be suiting you now. You must also admit that some of your truths are transient, good for the moment. To grow spiritually, you must cultivate a beginner's mind. It ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. May we all be open to new beliefs, new opinions, and a willingness to grow with open curiosity in all our endeavors. Amen, and blessed be.